There we are. Thank you. All right, so the first item that we're going to be looking at spending some of this money on, which is perfectly aligned with the federal regulations, is outfitting our county boardroom with microphones, speakers, and cameras and systems. So we're looking at the next county board meeting is July 20th. And we will not have this system set up by then. The church is not available. They're doing Vacation Bible School that day. So we'll be in the boardroom on the 20th of July. We will have the junior high 7th grade rock band sound system. So it's going to be a challenging meeting. We would hopefully get it in by the August meeting though. So I've been working with, Heartland Business Systems, who we have a business relationship with. I've also contacted other counties around. Some of them did this last year. They used the CARES dollars. You might remember we got $250,000 of CARES dollars. We utilize that for other things instead of this, and we did spend all of that money. In conversations with the chairperson here, we have 4 proposals. And we're going to go with proposal number 1 will be proposal number 4 will be the recommendation. Proposal number 1 is basically a wireless mic system like you see right in front of us right here. Only would have 24 microphones with 24 batteries. I want to try to set you up with something that would be easy to maintain. We don't have a ton of staff. I just think we might be less successful managing wireless system in the long term. So in talking with Chairman Pufall, we kind of tossed that one out. The second proposal is basically microphones, 2 big like ceiling panel microphones that have 118 directional mics in them. They're 2 feet by 4 feet. They just sit in the ceiling. And there's no microphones individually. I'm not sure that's in the best value because again, you're having to manage the directions of that. And as you know, some people are softer, some people are louder. The loud talkers are probably going to be too powerful and the soft talkers aren't going to be loud enough when the microphones are on the ceiling. Option number 3 is basically a pedestal microphone that has an individual cable running to it. In this case, option 3 would be 24 cables that are running around the entire operation. And because of our configuration, we decided to go instead with option number 4, which is still the pedestal microphones. They have an individual speaker on them and they're daisy chained between each other with a Cat5 network cable. So this means in the future, if you guys ever want to change your county boardroom configuration, all you got to do is have Rachel cut up new network cables and you can do whatever you want on there. Bayfield County has something very similar to this. This option would have 2 cameras in the corners of the room. In addition, we'd have not only will the pedestal microphones have an individual speaker, there'll be 2 speakers up in the ceiling. And then I'm looking at two more TVs. So right now, we got the TVs on the
east and west.
The northeast and the west. Yeah, and if you're on one side of the room, you're looking at that TV all the way on the other side. It's hard to see. So I'm looking at putting 2 TVs, larger TVs, on the hallway wall because then people will be. So there'll be 4 TVs in there. So that's what I'm looking at to try to help. Provide better audio visual. So this will help you as you go forward to have your recorded meetings on your YouTube channel, have better audio, better visual, have board members and citizens partake in your meetings. I'm very excited about putting this forth and getting this set up. And I've been communicating with Dick about this. And we're looking at option number 4 for around $69,000. There's be some cabling and some difference on there. So I would seek a motion to go with option 4 up to $70,000 from the ARPA money.
Now, just to clarify it, Clark, no, this is money, this is a purchase would be paid for by the ARPA.
Yes, it'll be,
Not going to cost the county any money.
that's correct. It's federal money that we've already got the money actually. So we just have to apply it. And I'm confident that this is fully allowable within the ARPA regulations right now without having to go through the lost revenue. So the many counties are doing this actually. So.
All right, entertain a motion. Kathy? Yeah.
A second.
Do we have a second, Clarence? Laura?
Laura seconded.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Good.
With this kind of money, are we under any obligation to put out an RFP before we just, go with what this company has proposed? I think there's at least one local company I know that might bid on such a thing.
That's probably an excellent point. Yeah. Why don't we do this? It's going to take us a few more months to do this because we'll have to put together an RFP, have a 30-day time limit. You might not have a sound system till September, but the state guidelines are $25,000 and they basically have to do with items which cannot be removed. So let's say you're doing something that's in a building. We just went through this with another county. They basically need $300,000 of compressor units that went out. That doesn't have to be put out through bid because it can be something that can be picked up and moved. They're not making a permanent installation to the operation. I would have to seek the opinion of Max to see if this would be what would be considered a permanent installation, or is this something that can be fit underneath the other guidelines. So I don't have the correct answer for you right now, but we could basically say if it's approved by Corp Council up to $70,000, and if it's not, put it on RFP. Or we could just wait another month and come back after I do more research.
Pat?
For about 20 years, I taught what are called interactive television courses, ITV courses for WITC, and then later when it was switched over to the computer-based, they called it IP video, IPV courses. These pedestal mics are what they originally had in there, and there was a lot of challenges with them, including are you too close, you too far away, do mics have to, to speak, it needed to be on, and then when you're done speaking, turn it off, otherwise everybody hears all your shuffle. Those things were a pain in the butt. And I'd have as many, including my own site, as many as 3 other sites hooked up simultaneously. Those things were a pain in the butt. And what WITC moved to probably 7, 8 years ago already was a single mic that hung in the ceiling. And that mic is amazing. And maybe it's the size of the building or the room you're in, I don't know. But it's amazing because someone could be sitting there and speak softly, sounded like you were right next to them. Somebody over there, if they shuffle their papers or crumple, or if they happen to sneak in a bag of potato chips, I'd have to stop class because it was too loud with the potato chips. So it didn't really matter how loud the person spoke. That system made the voice sound like it was there. And then there was no turning on and off of mics. There was no cables, everywhere else, all of those issues. So that mic in the ceiling, I don't see it in an option here, but I'd really like you to research a hanging mic in the ceiling, and you could contact WITC. They're always good about showing people what they got. But that thing is amazing compared to the pedestal. It took away so many issues. And it was probably the single best thing in terms of making those rooms function better over the 20 years that I was there.
Yeah. There's the option number 2 is those ceiling microphones. And they're, like I said, they're just big flat items. It's about $60,000.
But the one at WITC is no bigger than this here. It's a ball that hangs in the ceiling. It's only 2 inches, 2.5 inches in diameter. It's not this bigger thing that you're describing.
So I did talk to Price County, and Price County did install these the option number 2 ceilings, And you are correct. I think their biggest problem is, as the county board members are whispering to each other, it picks it up. They're like, hey, what are you gonna vote on? You know, and he's like, that's the biggest issue, is everybody's got to be quiet, because it does pick up everything, and they are directional. Again, I've been working with Chairman Pufall and part of his preference on this, but the money is there. We could wait another month if you want to read more about this, or we could do an RFP. It's really up to the board to decide. You'll just have to suffer. You'll have to suffer through some meetings that are going to be very difficult to hear for the remote people, because we only have, 8 microphones in that room. So that your next meetings in the county boardroom will be more difficult. But if you get something in the long run that you really like, what's a few months of waiting? I'm game for doing more work on it. If the board wants to see RFP put out and more detailed analysis, I'd be fine with that too. I mean, right now we have a motion and a second to approve option number 4.
All right, we want to vote on
Anybody want to make a motion to
Option number
table
4.
it if you want to table it?
Ron?
Supervisor Stender, I'd like to make a motion to table this so we can get some more prices, some more information.
Okay, Clarence?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to
Second
table.
by Clarence.
All those in favor of tabling this, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 15, census redistricting.
Okay, so as you well know, the United States Census normally puts out their information in April. The counties have till July to put their packet together as far as their districts. They send it to the local municipalities, who have 60 days to review it. They send it back to the county. The county has 60 days to approve that. It all gets done by November, which is before December 31st, when these local offices, including yourself, would take out papers and file for your seats for the election in the spring of 2022. Census Bureau is not going to have that information available till sometime in September or October. So there's been it's been a very challenging thing from Wisconsin's county associations to try to corral counties. Some counties feel they can get this done in a 45-day period or even a 30-day period. Again, you have to do notices. These are people who have daily papers, because it has to be noticed twice to do this. It doesn't work in rural counties that have weekly papers. Plus, we don't have as many staff, because again, this is a matter of how much capacity you have from Brittany's position with GIS and everybody else that's going to have to work on this. That being said, WCA is having 2 bills that are going to be voted on tomorrow, which will basically delay the redistricting until next year. So you would file for your seat in your current district without change. We would in turn be charged with, as this information comes out in September or October, we would put our proposal out for districts in February, by the end of February. And again, then municipalities would have 30 days. And so basically it would affect the fall elections for 2022, because that's when those districts would be adopted. And there isn't any motion here, but I just wanted to bring it up that we have been working on it, and there has been some issues with this. Your particular seats, you would run for office in your new district in the spring of 2024, because we would change those districts. So you would basically complete your next session, as we call it in Wisconsin, in your current districts, and then we would redistrict later. Counties like ours that have flat or declining population doesn't really affect us much, because we don't have a lot of population shift. Counties like St. Clair County, where, you know, they're growing every single year. They're always adjusting the districts to balance out where they're at. So I don't anticipate this being a great effect to you, but I did want to bring you up to date as we go through this process. Is there any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay.
County administrator updates.
Okay, so we're having an executive meeting today at 1 o'clock in the county boardroom. We'll be going into closed session to pick 7 or 8 semifinalists out of a pool of 17 applicants for your next county administrator. These semifinalists will produce a video of themselves answering some questions, most likely 5 minutes or so, with a full resume and more information from the search firm. On June 29th at 9 a.m., we're going back into closed session with the executive committee to select 3 candidates for finalist interviews. We'll be having the 3 finalists come on July 8th in the afternoon. We'll be giving tours of some of the county to them, and then having a meet and greet for all county board members in the courthouse between 4 and 6 p.m. on July 8th. I envision splitting the board up into 3 groups and having the candidates spend 20 minutes or so with each group, introducing themselves and talking about their skills and abilities. And most likely we'll have like some sort of feedback from the full county board. You know, what do you feel about these candidates, 1, 2, or 3? On the 9th in the morning, the 3 finalists will go between an interview with our department heads, which will give a score, a skills test, an emotional test developed by the search firm, and then a formal interview with the executive committee. After lunch that day, the executive committee will regroup, take the scores from the skill testing, the department head scores, the executive scores, and I didn't write in there, but actually the feedback from the county board from the day before, and then pick a candidate to recommend to the full county board. The full county board will confirm the applicant on July 20th at 9 a.m. in the county boardroom. For today's executive meeting, as with any closed session of the committee, all county board members are welcome to attend. We will both have in-person and Zoom available in the closed session for county board members. So those of you who are newer to the board, you can come into these closed sessions and just watch what's going on, or you can do it via Zoom. But we don't let the public watch the closed sessions and the evaluations of that. Is there any questions about the progress we're making on the search firm? Okay. I'm very happy. We got 17 candidates. We have a good group, especially they basically rank them in green, yellow, and red. We have a good group in the green category, 7 or 8 candidates there that I think you'll be able to pick somebody that will be very successful in this, replacing and taking my shoes. We're onboarding our health insurance consultant. They're called M3. They'll be charging us $16 per member per month to help guide us in our self-funded plan. The cost of the service will come from the health insurance fund and be built into their recommendations for contributions. They'll be looking at third-party administration, RX management, wellness incentives, stop-loss carriers, deductibles for staff, provider networks, and other issues with our plan. The goal is to get a handle on the overall health insurance issue and stop the yearly borrowing from the general fund and turn it around. In my education and review of this issue and comparing ourselves to other counties, right now we put in $24,000 per year for a family plan. We are mid-range within our kind of rural counties that do this kind of thing. There are some counties that maybe put in 25. There are some counties that maybe put in 22 or 23. My goal is to hopefully manage this so we keep the same contribution at around $24,000, but we manage all those other expenses to make the plan more sustainable and less likely to need borrowing. Now, as you're well aware, we've already made some changes to the plan. We basically no longer have retirees over the age of 65 eligible for the health insurance on the county. And that will help a lot because they tended to be a high cost group. In addition, we basically no longer carry the bills for our stop loss carrier. So we had that one high cost COVID case. We basically were paying the bills and then seeking stop loss reimbursement after the fact. That was creating huge gyrations of hundreds of thousands of dollars of money coming in and coming out. We stopped that as of February this year. So hopefully that'll be a self-leveling operation. You'll see a better analysis of cash flows, of inflows and outflows without having to figure out, is this stop loss or is this covered? So I'm very excited that we're going to turn this around and have a better experience with our health insurance. On the side, we're working with a firm that would manage carbon credits for our county forest lands. We'll be bringing that to the board in the future. It's a good proposal. Again, lots of other counties have been doing this, and we'll get this to the full county board. We're reviewing the contract and making sure that we're getting this best deal we can for the carbon credits. It has to be a managed forest, and so we'll be managing it anyway. So we still will be able to harvest, but we can only harvest a certain percentage of our forest lands. In talking to our forest administrator, he says it really wouldn't change our forest practices and harvesting at all anyway. This would be added revenue coming into the county every year. So again, exciting things happening there. EMS update. I've been working with the town since January and the EMS coverage in South County. The good news is that Glidden is putting together their service again, which is planned to have paid staff during the day and on-call volunteers during the evening hours. They'll be covering Gordon, Shannon, Golden, Jacobs, and Peaksville. And this will be very exciting because like we talked about with the remote work, they're going to actually have paid staff during the day. Again, you have these small little towns. What better way to support them than having people and employees in that town? And so they're working on that. This will be a transition period for Jacobs and Peaksville. Right now, they basically, along with Glidden, they are currently signed up with Park Falls Marshfield Clinic, and that will be till the end of the year. So they're going to be transitioning as they get people trained and certified going forward. They're hoping to be online to at least be EMR for July 20th. And so that's very exciting news that we'll have coverage in those towns that didn't have coverage before. Very exciting. The fiscal review team has been working for 4 weeks now, interviewing department heads, working with staff in the clerk's office, myself, working with our county auditors, and they've compiled a list of recommendations for improvements and provide a better picture of cash management. We were awarded a $25,000 grant that I wrote to Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation at the request of the Department of Revenue due to my concerns about cash flow later on this year or next year. And so again, we're getting close on cash, especially during this construction period. We have to write out almost $1 million check for highway road construction, and we have to make, some of it will be reimbursed, maybe a couple $100,000, but that's money that goes out the door. And even though it's technically it's coming from the highway fund, as you well know, the highway fund doesn't have any cash in an account sitting there separate from the county's general fund. So that's part of the issue. Overall, we've seen $3 million over the last decade go out the door in cash, which is kind of your main problem here. $1.7 million of cash went into the healthcare fund. $1.6 million basically were paid out in settlements for the Sanborn property tax issue. So I've been working with the tribal chairperson Wiggins, along with the attorney from the tribe and our attorney, the Department of Revenue's attorney. I've been working with WCA, trying to figure out, is there a way that we can stop making these settlements as this case goes through court? It right now is being appealed to the 7th Circuit Court in Chicago. Every year that this goes on, we are making settlement payments to the towns, 4 towns and school district of around $260,000. And so you've already put in $1.6 million into this, and that is cash that who knows if you'll ever see that back. That's part of the reason why the county, that's $3 million that the county has had cash just out the door. That's why we're struggling with this issue. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to turn the healthcare around for you before I leave, or at least I'll provide the path for you to turn that around. And I'm hoping to provide some sort of guidance and path for these settlement issues before I leave also. But this is a complicated issue, and there are no easy solutions. RFP for our audit firms were due yesterday. I'll compile them, and the finance committee will be meeting on the 22nd to go over those for a possible review if we want to change auditors or not. We've had the same auditor for many years, but it never hurts to go out and see what else people have to provide, what kind of services they have, and what they can do. And that's my update. Any questions on those items?
Next, we're going to G, County Board Supervisor reports. Any supervisors have any reports? Clarence?
This is Supervisor Ortman. I have one when you have time.
Not a report, but just a suggestion for the future. Now, at the beginning of the meeting, we approved this agenda. And then after, when we got to the regular agenda, we had a request by the chair to lump several items together in kind of a consent agenda. I think the proper way to do that is to do that before we approve the agenda. Otherwise, they're on the agenda as individual items, and they should properly be taken up individually. So before we approve the agenda, we should have that request to lump those together in a consent agenda.
Anybody else? Kathy?
I'll make it brief. I received this 11-page document from south of the county, and it's 11-page document asking we, the undersigned, are petitioning the Ashland County Board to continue services for the nutrition and senior program in Ashland County. So I'll hand this over to. It's 11 people's names.
I think I got that already.
Clark, did you get it?
I did not get that.
Give it to him. Okay, just a reminder to drop off.
Laura, did you have a report?
This is Counselor Supervisor Ortman. I have one as well.
I actually have two. I want to let you know what we're doing in public property and law enforcement, because I feel this is the time where we keep our supervisors apprised of what's going on in our committees, since we're run by committees. We're still working on our medicated assisted treatment plan. That's to help anybody that has addiction issues while they're in. We're looking at the large projects that are needed for any of our properties or our courthouse. And I've also tasked Clark to help us have quarterly statements on the departments that we oversee for PPLE. So that way we can keep an eye on our budget pieces, so we are more aware of what goes on in each one of the departments and see if there's any variations that we need to be apprised of, because as we pass things, that affects what goes to finance and what happens in our budget overall. And then I also sat in on the Northwoods Rail Transit Commission meeting on the 8th. Somebody had some questions, I know, during one meeting about if they could possibly do scenic. Watco probably won't do it on their own. It would have to be a different company, and they'd have to have all their insurance and everything. But if somebody wanted to pursue that, or pursue somebody that does, because they do have a group that does a tour train up by Sault Ste. Marie. So they are aware of that, and they are willing to entertain that. The big thing is going to be the funding. And I don't see our line, that Prentice to Ashland piece, as a top priority because of the damage that's done. I had them ballpark out numbers, so don't hold them to this. It's anywhere between $600,000 a mile to $750,000 a mile because of those bridges and stuff that are knocked out. The big thing we can do is on our side of the line and anywhere from Prentice on up, we could all find the businesses that would use this service and make sure that they contact Watco, jump on this meeting, because it could be merchandise, any kind of freight. You guys know what kind of things ship. But if we have businesses on our end that would use this service, that is going to be the big driver of how soon they look at our line. Otherwise, we're kind of in limbo for a while, if we're even on their radar at all because of the cost. Thank you.
Charlie?
Okay, thanks. I made this very short. I did a pretty extensive study on the committee selection process we've had for so many years, and these are my findings and a recommendation. So Honorable Chair Pufall and board members, our committee selection process is broken. Ashland County would be better served if this board modified committee selection guidelines to create a system ensuring all board supervisors have as close to the same amount of yearly committee meetings, excuse me, as possible. Proof of the inadequacy of our process is revealed by the fact that under the current process, the busiest supervisor has over 40 meetings a year, while the least busy has as few as 20. Regardless of the causes, this begs to be fixed. Every supervisor needs to be utilized as fairly and effectively as possible. Voters in every district have a righteous expectation that their elected supervisor will be actively engaged in county government processes in as equal and fair a manner as possible, and they expect us to make that happen. Systemic marginalization of supervisors is not good governance and is something we can and must fix. The public should see this body doing everything possible to see every supervisor has an equal voice in the governance of this county. I respectfully request Chair Pufall and this board's support in asking the executive committee to come up with a system that elects and/or appoints committee members against the criteria of seeing each member equally employed, meaning each member has roughly the same amount of yearly meetings. I suggest this for the next full board meeting as a discussion possible action item. Thank you. That's all.
Anybody else? Okay, just a reminder, if you brought your vouchers with you to turn them in, otherwise drop them off at the courthouse, mail them in, whatever. Supervisor reports. Mike? Is there a second? We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Who seconded it? Ron? Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.